On, guys. So I know it's been a minute since you've seen me. I have been very busy. I unfortunately had something, somewhat of a family emergency pop up, and it prevented me, because I had to leave town, prevented me from going to the Reese's Senior Bowl, which absolutely devastates me because I was a credentialed media member, and it's just a really important part of the evaluation process of watching all these college kids. So I'm very upset about that, but some things are just out of your control. It is what it is. But I'll be back next year, and I've been to previous years, so whatever. Anyways, I wanted to just touch base with you guys and basically talk a little bit about just the state of the current NFL right now, just in terms of DeShaun Watson. What's going on with him? A little talk about the Super Bowl while I'm driving down the road here, running some errands, doing what I do. But anyways, let's go ahead and open things up with DeShaun Watson. So with Watson, you're hearing a lot about Watson wants out, and basically the kind of narrative that's being, I wouldn't say pushed purposely, but just kind of the way we think about these kinds of things, or the way we talk about these kinds of things, are when player X wants out, he gets out, right? Like, they're going to trade him because DeShaun doesn't want to play there anymore. Well, guys, this is a business, first and foremost. DeShaun Watson is a very valuable asset to the business that is the Houston Texans, right? So that's number one. Why would Houston want to trade him? Getting a legitimate, superstar franchise quarterback is one of the most difficult things to do in the NFL. I mean, ask the Miami Dolphins, or ask, several teams have not had one in 2 decades. I mean, the Buffalo Bills fans are so happy now because they have Josh Allen. Before that, it had been a solid, 2-3 decades since they've had one of those guys. So it's not something that you're just like, hey, give me a few draft picks and, I'll just part ways with DeShaun Watson. So we saw that this morning, I believe it was, or maybe it was yesterday morning, either or, where I guess the new GM for Houston essentially said something along the lines of, we're excited for our future with DeShaun Watson. We're not trading, we have no interest in trading the player, right? So that's kind of the big, emergency brake, so to speak, in terms of the NFL franchise in regards to whatever the player wants, right? DeShaun Watson's a great person, to my knowledge, right? He's a great player, undoubtedly, but you can't just say, I want to be traded and expect that the team will honor that just because you want that, right? If DeShaun Watson's, willing to sit out and actually sit out and forego paychecks and pay the considerable amount of fines that he will be paid. I mean, each offseason, if you were to just sit out an offseason, I believe it's going to come around to somewhere around $1 million in fines, right? And you might say, well, DeShaun's making $30+ million a year. No big deal. He can afford the $1 million in fines. Excuse me 1 second, guys. Get to get the water I have back here. 1 second. Okay. Getting a little dry mouth as I talk here, but yeah. So number one, and really this should have been number one for everybody, but the Houston Texans do not have to trade DeShaun Watson. If DeShaun Watson doesn't want to play there, and it's to the point where he will just not play football for a year, guess what? The Houston Texans don't lose any value, in my opinion, because Watson is under contract for several more years, right? So if he's under contract for, I think, 3 or 4 more years after this one, this one's over, so 3 or 4 more years, that means he'd have to sit out for 4 years to, and pay those $1 million in fines each year, which the club no longer has the say in terms of whether they fine you for missing practices and missing training camp and things like that. They no longer have they have to fine you. So the new CBA that was negotiated in. And DeShaun Watson, of course, if the Texans would only benefit financially because, well, number one, they get to fine him. Number two, they would obviously not have to pay him his base salary in those years, and obviously he wouldn't hit any incentives that might be in the deal or whatever. So, people were suggesting that Watson basically knew he wanted to be traded as early as last year, or maybe early this season. And that's kind of silly because the guy just signed the contract. dude, if you sign a contract with I believe he even has a no trade clause, which obviously he can forego if he gets potentially traded somewhere that he wants to go. It's tough to ask then to be traded. Like the Texans just gave him a $27 million signing bonus. You know what I mean? That's just a direct deposit into your bank account when you sign type of thing, and it helps because it lowers the cap hits on an annual years or whatever throughout the contract, but it's an investment that the team already paid in full, and that's not a gigantic signing bonus for a quarterback, especially for one of Watson's caliber, but it's still $27 million, you know what I mean? So, he doesn't want to, the team doesn't want to just dump that $27 million, because that's not something they get back, right? Unless it was like some crazy deal where they negotiated with the trading team to where like they would do something like the Brock Osweiler Cleveland Browns deal, but likely that's not going to happen. So, in terms of if DeShaun Watson's agent was able to, jump all these hurdles and somehow work out a deal to get his guy traded, then it would turn into this. If DeShaun Watson's lucky enough, right, if he's, extremely fortunate, he will have the team that's willing to trade for him, that is also a team that, number one, the Texans are willing to trade him to. Number two, that that specific team will give the compensation it would take to entice the Texans, because look, you've got one of the 3 or 4 absolutely, at minimum, best quarterbacks in football, and you've got him under contract for 4 more years or whatever it is. Like, it's going to take a hell of a lot. If I were the GM of the Texans, I'm the only one that's interesting to me. Not the only offer, but if I'm like really going to do this because I want to do it, not because I'm accommodating a player that's under contract for me, that's a business arrangement, guys. That's a business agreement. You signed your name. You said, hey, come hell or high water, I will be here if I'm physically capable, and I will be giving it my all. I'm not mad at Watson for doing this. I'm just simply stating the facts of the matter, right? No matter, he can say, oh, I didn't like, that you didn't hire this guy, I didn't like this or that, whatever. At the end of the day, he signed a contract saying that he'll play football for the Houston Texans for the next 4 years or so. That matters, right? So, like I said, I'm not mad at Watson for wanting out. He can want out all he wants, and he might get out because Houston might decide that the compensation is there. Hold on one second, guys. Okay, so now, like I said, if he's lucky enough that the Texans say, all right, fine, we'll trade our franchise quarterback, our elite franchise quarterback, and the team that wants to actually give away the compensation that would make it worth it for them to do so, that team is a team that he actually wants to go to. You know what I mean? All those things would have to align for Watson to actually be traded and for him to forego his no trade clause, right? So that's kind of the interesting parts about that whole deal, and we'll see what happens. I don't think he'll be traded. I think that maybe they just need to throw another $20 million signing bonus on there. Just add $20 million to his deal and spread it out over 5 years or whatever. It's only $5 million more annually per year. Maybe that'll solve the problem. Who knows? Maybe Watson feels like he signed a deal that wasn't a good deal for him, and now he just has kind of buyer's remorse, and he's like, man, I could have gotten 40+ million on the open market. I want more money. I don't think that's the case. I'm just spitballing here. But if there were teams that, if this was a Madden franchise game and there were teams that we could just pick and choose to who would trade for him, number one team that has my interest is the Detroit Lions, right? Because, well, I don't think Watson would want to go there, but they do have a guy named Matthew Stafford that if you're going to have to trade an elite quarterback, you can do it for a guy that's damn near elite, and some might even call him an elite quarterback. That's not a bad deal, and you would, of course, get draft compensation if you're Houston, right? You would probably get, I would imagine you could get Stafford and a 1 for DeShaun Watson. I think that maybe even more than that, to be honest, because of the age difference as well. So, the Detroit Lions are one place that makes sense. Of course, they're not that appealing to Watson, in terms of just like a contender, things like that. But hey, he went into Detroit, and if you guys remember, it was on Thanksgiving Day, and he absolutely destroyed them. So maybe, who knows, maybe there'd be interest there, but I just think that's just, the idea of that is somewhat interesting in my opinion. Another place would be, of course, the San Francisco 49ers, which Kyle Shanahan, get those guys, in there for the Watson sweepstakes. That would obviously be a great scheme fit, and Watson would throw 40-plus touchdowns in 2021. So, what would they do to give? What would they give up for him? I'd say, that's the problem with that one. I guess you would, obviously, it'd be Jimmy Garoppolo and 3 ones. If I'm Houston, I want Jimmy Garoppolo and 3 ones, because, to be honest, there's no guarantee Jimmy Garoppolo is the best quarterback on my team in 2021. If I'm Houston, if I make that deal. So, or at least, if he is, doesn't mean he's a franchise guy. So there's a difference between being a solid quarterback and being an actual franchise quarterback. So I think that one obviously would be fun, though, just the Niners as a destination. Another one would be the New England Patriots, of course. They don't have a ton in terms of offensive firepower for him at this time. But when you've got Bill Belichick, I think DeShaun Watson in his prime would be more than happy to play there. So I think that's a team that he would, allow his no trade clause to. It's just a matter of compensation. I don't think New England has a ton to offer unless they just give a bunch of picks. But I think these teams with quarterbacks that are at least a good bridge quarterback are the ones to really look out for, right? Like San Francisco, and then also another one of those teams is my team, the Carolina Panthers. I would be more than happy if I was today hired right this second as the GM for the Carolina Panthers. My very first phone call would be to the Houston Texans. I would offer Teddy Bridgewater, and I almost said 5 first-round picks, but I would offer Teddy Bridgewater and 3 ones and 2 twos. Like, I would do whatever the fuck it took to acquire him, if it was even remotely possible, right? And I think that the reason a crazy deal like that would be worth it for me is because I think the Panthers have a lot of good young players, right? They have Teddy Bridgewater that they're already allocated about $20 million each of the next 2 years in terms of cap space. So paying DeShaun a little bit more is a no-brainer of a decision. And then they have weapons. They have arguably the most weapons of any place he could potentially go. So, I would honestly, and I would even throw in like Derek Brown. Like, I'm crazy. I know that sounds nuts, but I would easily give away 3 ones, Derek Brown and Teddy Bridgewater, for DeShaun Watson if I'm the Carolina Panthers. I would even throw in the 2 twos. And I know that's overpaying, but sometimes you got to overpay for something that's worth overpaying for, right? Because, DeShaun Watson, that offense might throw 50 touchdowns next year. So it's like, are you overpaying? I don't know. I think so. What did Teddy throw? Like 20 touchdowns, maybe? And that's no disrespect to Teddy, but and the other part of that is Teddy is young enough to where he could go to Houston and he could win some games for them, or at least maybe they want to take a shot on him and see if he's a guy that maybe turns into their franchise quarterback. Who knows? Anyways, another team, let's think about it, would be, really, guys, I could do this all day. It'd be any team, essentially, right? Like, what about the Miami Dolphins? I think everybody's talking about this, but still, Tua Tagovailoa, to trade Tua and 3 ones and 2 twos, I would do that. And I'm throwing in the 2 twos. I haven't heard that anywhere, but to me personally, that makes sense, just because who gives a shit about like 5 rookies, 1 each of the next several years? Like, who cares? You're getting DeShaun Watson. Like, you can sign some solid veteran free agents that are 31, 32 years old that are a little bit cheaper. You can makeshift that roster around DeShaun Watson if you are able to land him. So for me, those picks are not that big of a deal, in my opinion. Anyways, so yes, the Jets would be another one. The Jets are a good situation, I think, because they're quietly a better team than people think. They have some weapons offensively: Jamison Crowder, Perriman, and Denzel Mims, and they also Herndon. And but what excites me most about the New York Jets, if I'm DeShaun Watson, is that offensive line started to play better this year, and they were basically 5 new starters. So they're only going to get better with continuity. So I think that the New York Jets would, obviously with a high draft pick as compensation, would be a team that might work out. And if you're Houston, if you believe in like Zach Wilson or Justin Fields, that's your trade. And of course, you'll get a lot more compensation instead of not just that one guy. But okay, and then So I mean, I don't know. You get the point, right? A team could trade for DeShaun Watson and potentially shake up the whole NFL world, and that would sure be exciting for an off season. It'd be, something that I would love to talk about more and more if we were able to see that. But ultimately, guys, let me reinforce this one last point, and then we'll move on to a different topic here. But ultimately, DeShaun Watson is not likely going anywhere, right? Like, Houston simply doesn't have to trade him. And unless that's why I think if they did trade him, it would take some kind of outrageous deal like Derek Brown, Teddy Bridgewater, 3 1s and 3 2s or something. It would take something like that, because it's like, would the Chiefs trade Patrick Mahomes if he said he wanted traded? I mean, you know what I mean? That's kind of like the way you have to think about it, because why would a team trade such a valuable asset for something that they're almost assured not to get that kind of asset at that position in return, So, I mean, look, we've seen guys in the top 10, top 5 quarterbacks bust. Look at Sam Darnold, and I know he has talent. I'm just like, so the Texans, for them to take that kind of a risk and put that kind of pressure on the number 1 or number 2 overall pick or 3, whatever, in Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, it's not Madden. It's a lot different in terms of the real life aspect of it, the pressure that puts on a young kid to come in there and just fill the shoes of DeShaun Watson right away. So, and not to mention, there just aren't that many franchise quarterbacks alive. So, but yeah, anyways, if I had to make a prediction on this, I do not think Watson will be traded. But I sure as hell would enjoy it, because it'd be fun to talk about and fun to kind of see what the compensation would be if in the event that deal went down. And then let's talk about the Super Bowl real quick, right? So we saw these two teams earlier this season. The Chiefs ironically went into Tampa Bay. They beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but it was a close game. It seemed like it was about to be a blowout right away, because Todd Bowles and the Buccaneers defense decided they were going to put Carlton Davis. Oh, some girl was picking her nose. She was really digging it in. Anyways, they decided they were just going to let Carlton Davis, play one-on-one up at the line of scrimmage against Tyreek Hill, and they realized very quickly that was not a very smart move, right? I don't think that's going to happen. Carlton Davis, you guys have heard me say this many times, I think he's a much better football player than most people would say, and I think he could, he can't cover Tyreek Hill, but he can hold his own if you allow him to play the way he's supposed to play, right? He cannot get up there and try and press him. He'll get dusted. Anybody would. So I think that's a matchup, obviously, to look out for. The start. Who starts fast? Last week, and everybody's all over Brady about, Brady didn't play that well. He threw 3 interceptions. They won because of the defense and yada, yada, yada. But the thing is, guys, the first possession of the game, what happened? Tom Brady goes right down the field, scores a touchdown. It's situational play that is the true contextual, that gives kind of the true context behind the greatness of Tom Brady. The situational play, him going down and putting them up 7-0 right off the bat was a very big deal, right? This game, I think you're going to need, if the Bucs are going to win the championship of the world, they're going to need Tom Brady to be at his best situationally, and I think a very big first situation will be the first time the Buccaneers get the football. So I cannot wait to see, how that pans out, how the start of that game, like which of these teams starts fast. We've seen the Chiefs all season long, not every game, but damn near. We've seen them start very slow and have to kind of climb out of a hole. I don't think you want to be in that position against Tom Brady and the Bucs, because they have a kind of a pass rush that can get to you in that in the event of that kind of a game flow. They have Tom Brady, who's the greatest situational football player I've ever watched. And they have the whole Bruce Arians, no risk it, no biscuit thing, which, is sometimes good, sometimes bad. Anyways, so, I think starting that game will be crucial. Whoever starts fast, I think it's much more crucial for the Buccaneers, right? They cannot fall behind early again. They need to be the team that gets the early lead if they are to beat Kansas City. Now, something I'm not sure if anybody's talked about just yet is Eric Fisher being, I think he has the Achilles injury. That's a big deal because we just watched the Green Bay Packers have their David Bakhtiari's out for the game with the, I think his ACL, right? And we watched the Tampa Bay Buccaneers edge rushers completely wreak havoc in that entire game. So that is a very, very, very obviously big matchup, and just the overall Chiefs pass blocking offensive line against Tampa Bay's pass rushers and the kind of exotic pressures they like to bring at times. I mean, this team has speed at the linebacker position. They have guys that can hold the point of attack inside, and Vita McClendon. So those linebackers, when they blitz, they are really free and they are fast flowing to the football. So those guys coming after Patrick Mahomes is actually a decent matchup for Tampa because they can actually keep up with him, right? They can run. So obviously keeping Mahomes inside the pocket's a huge deal. I touch on that a million times a week on the podcast every time I break down the Chiefs game. So that's obviously a big deal. And I don't know. So turnovers will be huge. I'm excited. Brady versus Mahomes. We've got the GOAT against someone that a lot of fans call the soon-to-be GOAT, at least. So I'm very excited for this matchup. I'll have the I will get super detailed with my preview predictions episode this week because it is the last one of this season. So obviously I'll get really detailed on that because it'll only be one game, and that game is the Super Bowl championship of the world. But anyways, guys, I think that's all I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to touch base with you, let you know that I will be back starting on Monday, and maybe even Sunday, but starting Monday for sure, I will be back with my podcast every day, at least one, and I will be able to watch a ton of film, and I'm just going to kind of keep doing that. I think, at least for now, I'm going to keep watching 5 players at a certain position in terms of the draft prep. I'm going to watch 5 players at a position, and then I'm going to break them down and in podcast form. So if you guys want me to do more video stuff, I will. Just let me know, and I'll probably post this on the YouTube channel. That way, I don't know where else I will post it. But anyways, I appreciate you guys for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Later.